Last two chapters of Judges. We're not going to start Ruth the next week, so I'm not going to let the other evening class start Ruth the next week. You got Ruth questioned, didn't you? Yes. We should be through with Ruth definitely by Christmas, and then we'll just take Christmas holidays off. Like here. Okay, the last two chapters of Judges, chapter 20 and 21. The key verses for this particular just have me go around. Yeah, the key verse for this particular these two chapters is the last chapter of the book. In the days of 18, verse 1. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and everybody did what was right in their own sight. Also in chapter 17, verse 6. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and everybody did what was right in their own sight. So these last two chapters throw in some things that are happening. When we get to Ruth, we'll see that Ruth falls in the lines of the book of Judges too. Probably during the time of Gideon, I believe, or somewhere like that, maybe, or earlier. Chapter 20, then all the sons of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead, came out, and the congregation assembled as one man to the Lord. What had happened, as we said before, was that this Levite who had a concubine, and they went to the city of Jerusalem, and the men of Jerusalem wanted to have a homosexual, forceful relationship with him, and instead of them getting their way, his concubine was taken. The men raped her all night long, and the next day she died, or the night she died. And then when the Levite got back to his country, he cut her up into 12 pieces and sent each tribe a piece of a body and said, this is the kind of country we're living in, where people are being raped and beaten, and I'm going to show you the results of the debauchery we're living in. Now, he wasn't being truthful that way, because he wasn't a great guy himself, but he was using that to sort of build his case out of his anger, because they had killed his property. And so when Israel, the other 11 tribes, got their body part, an arm, an elbow, or leg, femur, or whatever, they got their body part, they were upset. And the Bible says they came and assembled as one man. They came together as one. There's every year in Fayetteville for the last 3 or 4 years, they have what we call an As One March. You may have heard of it. And you see it right here in chapter 20, verse 1, as one man. What we're going to realize coming to chapter 20, verse 2, the chief priests of all the people, even the tribes of Israel, took their stand in the assembly, about 400,000 foot soldiers, the sons of Benjamin of Israel. And the sons of Israel said, tell us, how did this wickedness take place? Well, the wickedness took place in the territory of Benjamin, one of their cities. So the other tribes asked Benjamin, how did this wickedness take place? And the Levite tells his story first. He says this. So the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, who was Merlin, and the conclusion. And I've heard parents say something to the effect, Pastor, I know my child doesn't lie. and you can't say anything to them. You know, I know my child tells me the truth all the time. And I don't know how even a parent can even think that way, but some do for whatever reason. But children will tell you their version of the truth, and it's usually they leave something out. Now, that don't mean that the teacher or the school isn't innocent. It's just you have to listen to both sides. You just can't jump to a conclusion. You just can't. Because if you do, you're in trouble. But that's his side of the story. And he said, and I took hold of my concubine and cut her in pieces and sent her throughout the land of Israel. But they have committed a lewd and disgraceful act in Israel. Behold, all the sons of Israel give you counsel, advice and counsel. Then all the people rose as one, saying, not one of us will go to his tent, nor will any of us return to his house until we solve the problem. So they've decided that they're going to solve this problem. This evilness cannot continue. We're going to do something about it. But now, verse 9, this is the one thing which we will go to Gilbert. We will go up against it by lot. So they determined to go up and fight Benjamin, but they're going to go up and talk to him first. But they've already made up their mind, because in verse 10, they've already got the men and their weapons and the army situated. And we will take 10 men out of 100 throughout the tribes of Israel, and 100 out of 1,000, and 1,000 out of 10,000 to supply food for the people. And when they came to Gilbert for Benjamin, they punished them for all the disgraceful acts that they had committed in Israel. So they had already made up their mind. They hadn't even talked to the people yet. That's something that you ought not to do. You should make up your mind after you get all the facts. But obviously, like with the what happened in Saudi Arabia in Turkey, it's a pretty simple case. The guy went in, he didn't come out, and they killed him. And then what the first thing the soldiers say? We don't know nothing about it. I mean, it's an obvious fact that he went in and they killed him, but they denied it first. Now they're probably, I think they're going to come, he was being interrogated, but that don't make no difference anyway. I'm keep getting interruption from my feedback. Okay, so in the next 24 chapters or 24 verses rather, I think it's 24. We have the Civil War. The sons of Benjamin gathered, verse 14, the cities of Gibeah to go out to battle against the sons of Israel. And the Benjamites in verse 15 had 26,000 men, fighting men. Those 26,000 men, verse 16 says 700 of them were left-handed and they were special forces and rangers. Yeah. So Benjamin had a good army, and then they had an elite force of 700 men, and they were left-handed, meaning that normally when you train to fight a right-handed person, but you have seven left-handed person, so your training isn't equipped to go up against a left-handed, and so that's why the children of Benjamin could win the war, because all the training was done by to fight left-handed people, right-handed people, not left-handed people. So when they went up to fight, the enemy had 400,000 men. The sons of Benjamin only had 26,000 men. Can you imagine the ratio there? Then the men of Israel, besides Benjamin, were numbered at 400,000 men who drew the sword. Verse 17. Verse 18. Now all the sons of Israel rose and went up to Bethel, and that's the house of God, and inquired of the Lord and said, who should go up first for us to battle against the sons of Benjamin? They had already decided what they were going to do. Now they're asking God. This is why it's not going to work out. If you've already made up your mind, why do you pray? You say, I'm going to do this. Now you're going to pray, Lord, should I do this? You've already made up your mind. So they had already made up their mind what they're going to do. Now they're going to ask God how they're going to do it. And God responded to your foolishness. Sometimes God will respond to our foolishness. And they said, who should go up first? In verse 18. And then the Lord said, Judah shall go up first. So the sons of Israel rose in the morning and camped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel arrayed for battle against Gibeah. and the sons of Benjamin came out of Gibeah and fell or killed 22,000 men of Israel. So the 400 against 22,000 against 26,000, and the 26,000 killed 22,000 people. They didn't lose a person. The Benjaminite won. I mean, you can think of almost a half a mission against only 26,000. And those left-handed men really were fighting, weren't they? But sometimes when you don't get the Lord on your side, I don't care how much money you make, you still have financial problems. I don't care how much education you get, you still have life problems if you don't have God involved. How many people who are rich, looking at Anthony Bourdain or other people, the guy on CNN, who the cook guy, he was wealthy, rich and famous, committed suicide. So it doesn't matter how wealthy and famous you are, you know, if you don't have God on your side. You could be promising. My wife used to watch a show we used to watch together called, I just slipped my mind. Anyway, it was two females. One name was Mora, I think. Two female with a detective and a doctor or something like that. But anyway, they had a black guy on the show, young guy. He committed suicide, a couple years ago, 29 years old. Beautiful future ahead of him. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or famous, good looking. If you don't have God, you could have problems. And so they had 400,000 men against 26,000, and they lost 22,000 men because they didn't have God. So without God, you are missing a key element in your life. A lot of people don't know that. You know, you can love each other and you can all that, but you don't have God in your relationship, you're going to have a bad relationship. The relationship might not be as good. So in verse 22, the people and the men of Israel encouraged themselves and arrayed for battle again in the place where they had arrayed themselves the first time. So they just lost 22,000 men, and they said, hurrah, let's do it again. You would think they was, you know. So they go, verse 23, the sons of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and inquired of the Lord, saying, shall we draw again for battle against the sons of Benjamin? And the Lord said, yeah, you already made up your mind. Go ahead. Then the sons of Israel came against the sons of Benjamin the second day. Benjamin went out against them from Gibeah the second day. And that day, 18,000 men were killed by the Benjaminites. So 40,000 men had been just killed just like that by the Benjaminites. And the sons of Israel trying to figure out what's going wrong. Sometimes when life is like that, you're trying to figure out what are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? I'm working, I'm praying, I'm fasting, I'm going to church. What am I doing wrong? Why is it so messed up? I don't know. You don't know. You may have to go back to the reason why you're doing something. And so what they did this time, after losing 40,000 men, verse 26, the sons of Israel and all the people went and came to Bethel, that's the house of God, and they wept again. This time they fasted. They stayed until evening. Then they offered burnt offerings. They offered themselves to the Lord. They gave themselves to the Lord. They weren't saying, Lord, help me. Lord, I want to help you. And then in verse 27, they inquired of the Lord. They looked at his word. Rather than just sort of listening and waiting, they began to read the scriptures. And then they asked the priest in verse 28, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, and they asked him to say a few words. And he stood before them and talked and saying, shall I yet go up to battle against the sons of my brother Benjamin, or shall I cease? And they listened for the word to come forth. They went and they had fellowship. So this time, rather than just seeking God for help, they wanted to give themselves to God to get help. And God said, okay, it seems like you sort of got your life together. God says, I will go up with you this time. Verse 28, for tomorrow, God says, I would take care of them. Before you were trying to take care of them, but now I will take care of your enemy. And see, sometimes when you think you got it together, you still got you involved rather than God involved. So when they offered burnt offerings, they were not asking God, they were presenting themselves to God. A certain way you have to pray and seek God. You got to say, God, here I am. I stand before you. I give my life to you. You use it as you want to. Not, Lord, I stand before you and use me, Lord, like I want to be used. No, you use me like you want me to be used. When they did that this time, verse 30, the sons of Israel went up against the sons of Benjamin. The third day, the sons of Benjamin went out again against the, as they did before. The sons of Benjamin thought they're going to have a victory again. But however, this time, according to verse 31, the sons of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city, and they began to strike and kill some of the people as other times on the highways. And one of which goes up to Bethel and Gilbert, and in the field about 30 men, about 30 men of Israel. And the sons of Benjamin said, they are stuck before us as at first. And the sons of Israel said, let us flee that we may draw them away from the city to the highway. So the sons of Israel went up this time with a strategy. They had talked to God. They got a strategy. We're going to go there and pretend that we're running from them. And when they come out from their cities to chase us, we're going to have some guys on the left and right side going to come around them, and we're going to get them in an ambush. Now they have strategy. Now they are dependent on God's way of fighting. This is how God fought when Joshua was there. So they're going back and looked at the word, and so they're going to ambush them because Benjamin was behind the wall. And so they're going to pretend that they're going to be running away from them, and Benjamin has already won 2 battles, so they're going to come from behind their wall and chase them. And when they chase them, then Israel will ambush them. This time they have a plan. If you want to win, what you got to do? Have a plan. God has a plan for everybody. You got to have a plan how you want to do things. You got to have a plan. Everybody has to have a plan. So, verse 33, then all the men of Israel arose from their place and arrayed themselves, and the men of Israel ambushed broke out of their place. Verse 34, and when 10,000 choice men from Israel came up against Gilbert, the battle became fierce. But Benjamin did not know that disaster was close to them. They did not know. They had won, but now they did not know. That's a good point, too. Sometimes we don't know how close we are to what. If I were to ask someone, have you ever been close to death? You say, well, yeah, I got in the car. Many of us may have been really close to death. We may have no idea. We have no idea. My brother and I were talking the other day. I won't go into names here, but he was saying, we were talking about someone who had killed someone years ago, and he said that the guy told him, a reference to me, the guy told him, he said, I almost shot your brother because I thought he was the guy. I said, wait, I had no idea. I said, I had no idea I was in his sights. Yeah. So you don't know, how close you are to death. You never know. I had no idea. I said, my goodness, I don't have anything to do with anybody. He said, yeah, but he didn't know. He thought you looked like him. Then he realized when he got up close, when he took an aim, you weren't the one. Wow. Yeah, scared me too. So you never know. You never know how close you are. And that's the sad thing. People live as if they're not close to death. They just live as if they're not close to disaster. They just go, wild and carefree. Unfortunate, the people who were driving away from the wedding the other day, 17 in a limousine, having fun, drinking and partying and whatever they were doing or talking. They had no idea that within minutes, all 17 would be dead. You don't know. So you should live every day as if it's your last, not every day as if your first. So Benjamin had no idea. Verse 35. And the Lord struck the Benjamite before Israel, so that the sons of Israel destroyed 25,000 men of Benjamin that day. Well, Benjamin only had 26,000. So now Benjamin lost 25,100 men. How many would they have had to give up if when they asked them to send those worthless guys out? They could have sent those 10 guys out and it could have been over with. But they didn't do it. So you only have 900 people left. We're going to see that actually they killed 26,300. They only had 26,400. They only had 600 men left of the whole tribe of 26,000 men. So sometimes when you don't kill sin, what will sin come back and do? Kill you. When they said way back in verse 13, give us those worthless men, and they didn't do it. And so in verse 35, they lost 25,000 men because they wouldn't. And so sometimes, why don't you stop doing that? Because if you don't, you're going to lose your family. You're going to lose your wife. You're going to lose your health. You don't stop. Why don't you stop driving so fast? Why don't you stop driving so the next thing you know, you wreck your car and they had to amputate your leg? Yeah. Or you lost your family, stuff like that. So you have to be very careful. Verse 36. So the sons of Benjamin saw that they were defeated when the men of Israel gave ground to Benjamin because they relied on the men in ambush. So 37, 38, 39, 40 sort of goes back over how they were ambushed. They were all ambushed, so I'll just do it. Now the men in the ambush harried and rushed against Gilbert, and the men in ambush also deployed and struck all the city with the edge of the sword. That meaning that they killed not only the Benjamites, they killed the women and children too. So they didn't only lose the men, they lost their kids. Only because they didn't give up the worthless men who had done this. Because they were family members. They didn't want to give up their family members. What you got to do sometimes? Give them up. or else. Yeah, it's hard. It's not an easy decision. I told the kids this morning in chapel, I said, you got to cut them loose. You got to cut them loose. Yeah. I wasn't talking about family members. I was talking about other folks. Verse 38, now the appointed sign between the men of Israel and the men in ambush was that they would make a great cloud of smoke rise from the city. So when Israel got behind the lines, they started burning the city. And when they saw the smoke rise, then the men came and attacked. And so that's how they got them in the ambush. And when then the men of Israel turned in the battle, and Benjamin began to strike and kill about 30 men of Israel. We talked about that, but they said, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. Did we do that one? Okay, sure. Well, they were sort of repeating the same thing. Surely we have defeated as before, but verse 40, but when the cloud began to rise from the city in a column of smoke, Benjamin looked behind them because they saw, oh, bro, they're in our city now. And then they saw that the city was built. Then the men of Israel, verse 41, turned, and the men of Benjamin were terrified, for they saw that disaster was very close to them. Now they see how bad things were. They turned their backs before the men of Israel toward the direction of the wilderness, but the battle overtook them, while those who came out of the city destroyed them in the midst of them. They surrounded Benjamin, pursued them, without rest and throwed them down opposite Gilbert toward the east. Thus 18,000 Benjaminites fell. It's sort of going over how the war happened. We know over 25,000 died, so they're just sort of repeating how it happened. The rest, verse 45, the rest fled to the wilderness, the rock of Rimmon, but they caught 5,000 of them on the highways and overtook them at Gilbert and killed 2,000. So all of Benjamin who fell that day were 25,000 men who drew the sword. All these were valiant warriors, but 600 men fled in the wilderness. So actually, 25,000 and 25,600 men died. So they left 600 left because they started with what? 26,000 men. So no, 24,000 men died, 25,000 men died, somewhere like that. Anyway, a lot of them died. They only had 600 men left out of 26,000. 600 men left out of 26,000, but they must have had more than that, according to 25,000 fell that day. So out of the 26,000 men, only 600 men were left in the whole tribe, and they ran to the wilderness to hide. Verse 48. The men of Israel then turned back against the sons of Benjamin and struck them with the edge of the sword, both the entire city with cattle and all that they found. They also set on fire all the cities that they found. So they not only killed the men, they also burned the city down. All of that happened because they wouldn't give up the evil men. When you don't give up sin, sin will what? Give you up. That's a lesson to learn. Now, what the guys are doing they were not good guys. I'm just showing you how that happens. They lost everything they had. Now, Israel had become a mob. They were unified as one, but when they went back and started burning the city and the town, they were unified as one, but they were what? A mob. They were not doing it for goodness. This was vengeance now. And so after they had done this, then they get remorseful. Oh, what have we done? And that's what mobs normally do when they get a conscience, don't they? Yeah. After they go out and lynch somebody or something, some people get a conscience and begin to say, well, we shouldn't have done that. Man, what? And then people have nightmares because, mob mentality and stuff like that. Guys who in war sometimes, sometimes they go out in war, they're in the middle of war, they destroy villages and stuff. When they come back from war, they realize we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to kill the kids. We didn't have to do that. That's why a lot of America felt so guilty about the plight of the Indians, because they knew they killed them off. Not only the braves, they killed the women and children. And so there's a lot of sympathy for Indians in a sense, because they feel guilty about it. They took the Cherokee and marched them from North Carolina to Oklahoma, killing thousands of them. And that's why a lot of white folk want to have Indian blood. They feel guilty. They feel guilty. They should feel guilty. They kill them. Hey, anyway. Yeah. Yeah. When you do something wrong, don't you feel guilty about it? I mean, just not that anything. You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have done it. And so now we have a perfect example. They know they shouldn't have, if they killed the men, they shouldn't have killed the women and burned the city. And so in chapter 21, verse 1, they say, now the men of Israel had said at Mizpah that none of us should give his daughter to the Benjamin in marriage. So they had made a pact that we're not going to have anything else to do with this tribe when they were in this mob mentality, when they were all together as one. but one for what? Evil, not for good. So they had already come up with all these things they were going to do. We're going to kill them. If we don't kill them all, we're not going to let them marry our daughters. So this tribe is going to go extinct. But, so the people came to Bethel and sat before the Lord until evening and lifted up their voices and wept bitterly. Now they're crying and weeping because of what they had done. And they said to the Lord now, this is what they said to the Lord, verse 3 of chapter 21. Why, O Lord, God of Israel, has this come about in Israel? Why are you asking God? You're the one that did it. You're the one that did it. God, why do you let me lose my leg? Well, you're the one who racing the car. Or why do you, whatever. So that one tribe should be missing today and is that we're going to lose a tribe. God, why did you let this happen? So who do they blame? Yeah. You don't teach your kids right from wrong. You don't give no discipline. You don't teach them how to read and talk. And then they grow up and they get in trouble. You say, why, Lord? Well, you did it. Yeah. Or in terms of America, we said, why are we having so many problems with race? Well, you did it. You should have not had slaves. Don't be crying at me. let me move on. So look at verse 3. They asked God. And so with my own personal life, I may say, God, why? But I did it to myself, didn't I? Yeah, I did it to myself, Yeah. Why am I having such a problem in my marriage? Well, I didn't want to mess up. I can't come. Whatever. But sometimes people will blame God for something that they did, and that's what they did. They say, God, why did you do this? Verse 4. And it came about the next day that the people arose early and built an altar there and offered burnt offerings. Verse 5. And the sons of Israel said, who is there among of all the tribes of Israel who did not come up to the assembly to the Lord? For they had taken an oath concerning him, and who did not come up to the Lord at Mizpah. And he said, surely she be put to death. So they had said that when they came together as one, everybody had come up and fight. And who doesn't come up and fight, we'll kill them. So now they're coming up with a solution to solve their problems. And let's get to the problem. Verse 6, and the sons of Benjamin were sorry for their brother, and the sons of Israel, rather, were sorry for their brother Benjamin and said, one tribe is cut off from Israel. So they're sorry for what they had done. What shall we do for wives for those who are left, since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage? So we got 600 men. The tribe is going to be extinct because we've killed all their wives. We've killed all their children. So what are we going to do to save them from being extinct? And so they're trying to come up with a solution. They're saying we can't give them our wives, our daughters, because we said we want to help them out. And we want to keep our word, because even though we are vicious and vile and perverted people, we do want to keep our word. You ever seen anybody like that who are self-righteous but do all evil stuff? They pray every meal. They pray, but they fuss people out and curse people out and live any kind of way, but they always pray at the meal. And always in church on Sunday, raising their hand, praising the Lord. Anyway. Yeah. So verse 8, chapter 21, and they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel who did not come up to the Lord at Mizpah, and behold, no one had come up from the camp of Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. So they asked themselves, who did not come up to help us fight against Benjamin? And then they realized that Jabesh Gilead did not come up. Now, their problem is they're trying to find virgin wives for the 600 men of Benjamin so that they won't wipe out a tribe. And they've decided they can't give them our daughters, so they're trying to come up with a solution to their crazy problem. And so they said, what group did not help us out? And Jabesh Gilead did not come up. So verse 9, for when the people were numbered, behold, not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead was there. And the congregation sent 12,000 of valiant warriors there and commanded them, go and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the sword, edge of the sword, and with the women and the little ones. Go kill all the women and all the children, all the married women, all the children. And this is one thing that you should do, verse 11. You shall utterly destroy every man and every woman who has laid with the man. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins who had not known a man by lying with him. And they brought them back to the camp. So that's how they're going to solve their problem, by killing another community off, killing all the women, all the men, all the married women, and kidnapping the young virgins. That's how they solve their problem. What are we doing at the border? We got to solve this immigration problem. What we're going to do? Let's take the kids away from the parents. I mean, what kind of thing is that? Are we going crazy?
Yes, because we have.
Are we going crazy?
No, but we have a new president.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the thing that we come up with, the solutions that we come up with. I don't know what the solution is, but taking kids from the parents is definitely not the solution.
Well, they did come up with a solution for it. They're actually having people legally adopt the children that they've taken from the parents.
And the parents don't know where their kids are. Yeah. It sounds good, doesn't it? But when there's no God in Israel, people do what was right in their own sight. Or if you're trying to raise money in church, you got to come up with a reason. Yeah, don't close the doors and don't let anybody out until they all pay. Yeah, or tell we come up also. Yeah. We can come up with reasons, can't we? Yeah, we can come up with reasons. Let's have a rainbow sale, bake sale, a queen and king of the church sale. Yeah, we gotta have a pastor appreciation. They have a. I know some churches have pastor's appreciation. Pastor's appreciation, and then the pastor appreciation. My goodness, have we gone crazy? We come up with anything. We have to make a mess. We come up with anything, don't we? All right, let me move on. This is the last chapter. I can go and let it go. Okay. What verse are we on? So they, verse 13, and the whole congregation sent word and spoke to the sons of Benjamin, the 600 men who were hiding in the caves. And they said, hey, we got 400 wives for you guys. Verse 14, the Benjamin returned at the time, and they gave them the women whom they had kept alive from the women of Jabesh Gilead. But it wasn't enough because they had 600 men on the 400 women. So they said, we got to come up with another reason to get them 200 more wives. So what did they do? Verse 15, and the people were sorry for Benjamin because the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. They were sorry because God had caused this problem. So they got to come up with a way to fix the problem that God caused. So what did they do? What did they do? Verse 16. And the elders of the congregation said, what shall we do for the wives of those who are left, since the women were destroyed out of Benjamin? The women we destroyed. And then they said, there must be an inheritance for the survival of Benjamin. By the way, even though this is crazy, the first king of Israel comes out of who? The tribe of Benjamin, Saul. And then the greatest apostle of all comes from the tribe of Benjamin, Paul the apostle. So God can take a mess and still make a masterpiece. Yeah. God had no hand in putting Benjamin that together, in a sense, but overall, God was in the plan because Paul the apostle is from the tribe of Benjamin. Ruth was a Moabitess. Her great grandmother was a sister. So God can take a mess and make a masterpiece. So even though we're in a mess, all is not lost. All is not lost. So that's why we sing America the Beautiful, even with the mess. This is a beautiful country, isn't it? Yes. It's a mess. It started with a mess, but it's a beautiful country. Best in the world. Okay. Verse 16, 16, 17, 18, but we cannot give them out the wives of our daughters, for the sons of Israel have sworn, cursed is he who gives a wife to Benjamin. So they needed 200 more women, but they couldn't give them their daughters. So they come up with a plan. I'll just tell you the plan. The plan was to have a big party and have all the single women come, Beyonce single women, have all the single women come, and when they come to the party, we're going to tell the men to go kidnap them. And we're not going to give them to them, but if they kidnap them, we're not going to stop them. And so they have the big party, and the single women come, and the Benjaminites go and kidnap them, and they say, okay, they can have them because we didn't give them to them, but they kidnapped them. So crazy, but this is what happened. So let's read it now. Verse 19, so they said, behold, there is a feast of the Lord from year to year, Shiloh, which is on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of highway that goes from Bethel to Shechem. Verse 20, and they commanded the sons of Benjamin, saying, go and lie and wait in the vineyards. Now you go lie and wait, and you wait for the women to come back, but we're not going to give them to you now. But you go lie and wait for them, and we're going to let them walk your way, and then when they get close to you, we're going to turn our heads and pretend we don't see you. So they did that, and the Benjaminite, verse 21, and watched, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to take part in the dance, and then you shall come out of the vineyard, and each of you shall catch his wife. I like that, catch his wife from the daughters of Shiloh. But we're not giving them to you now, but you got to catch him. And so the women came out, and then when the fathers of the brothers of the women who were out there got upset, they said, you didn't give them to them, they caught her. Verse 22, and it shall come about that when the fathers of their brothers come out to complain to us, that we shall say to them, give them to us voluntarily, because we did not take for each man of Benjamin a wife in battle, nor did you give them to them, else you would now be guilty. So you didn't give them to them, they caught them. Now that's just a what? Just a, you ever see a TV show when the lady or the man say, I can't do this, and you want to watch something illegal, say, I can't do this, but you say to the person, oh, but I'm going to go some water now. But you do, what you do is up to you. And so the person leaves to get the water, and the guy then or takes the picture or takes the stuff and walks out the door. So technically he didn't do what? Give it to them. Yeah, but in the heart he did it. That happens all the time. So it's almost like somebody said, well, technically I didn't kiss them, they kissed me. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. The sons of Benjamin did so and took wives according to their number from those who danced and who carried away, and they went and returned to their inheritance and rebuilt the city and lived in it. So they took their wives, 200 of them. So now all 600 men has wives. Now they can replenish the tribe. And when they did this, verse 24, the sons of Israel returned from there at that time, every man to his own tribe, and each one of them went from there to his own inheritance, and they lived happily ever after because they had done what was right. So in those days, there was no king in Israel. And God says everybody did what was right in their own eyes. And we know that wasn't right, was it? But they did it. So we can learn from this story. It's not so much it's history, but Romans 15:4 tells us those things that were written was written for our instruction. We can learn from this. So you're not getting doctrine from here, but you're getting some good points to live by. And that's what we do when we read the Old Testament. We're not so much looking for doctrine rather. We're looking for continuity, of course, but we're also looking for some good stuff to live by, a good testimony. And you can find a lot of stuff in this book that is good that you can say we do. And you find also that human beings aren't that different. This was about over 2,000 years ago. Have people changed? No, over 3,000 years ago. Have people changed that much? 3,000 years? They haven't changed that much. Human nature is human nature. It's always been the same. Nothing changed. Adam and Eve, human nature is human nature. That's what we didn't evolve. God created us. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got. And we have finished Judges. Thank the Lord. When did we start Judges, by the way, Miss Stewart? Was March or April? May 23rd. 5 months ago? October, 5 months ago? Yeah. It is on a sad note, but it continues in the book of Ruth because the book of Ruth takes place during the time of Judges. So the book of Ruth is sort of like a diamond in the rough. It shows us that good things can happen in the midst of bad stuff. And so book of Ruth, which her Ruth name means beautiful, by the way. She's not even a Jew, she's a Moabitess, but she fits within the story of Judges, probably somewhere around Gideon time. So in every bad situation, you can snapshot some good things that are happening, and so God always has what we used to call a lamb in the bush, a ram in the bush, a ram in the bush. God always has the faithful few. Everything can be going wrong, but there's always a faithful few who maintains. And the book of Ruth shows you that everybody did not do what was right in their own eyes. There were some people who did what was right in God's eyes. Okay. Yes, Versuit.
That's it. I have mixed feelings about the concept of the city of refuge. How should a Christian deal with that?
The cities of refuge, 6 of them. Well, they are, in the Old Testament, they are actual cities. In the New Testament, they are types of Christ. Because the cities of refuge were located in Israel at such a point that you didn't have to go very far to reach a place where if you had done something unintentionally, you could be forgiven for. So they were saying essentially was that Christ is always there, and he's close enough where if you need to cry out to him, he can be your protection against the avenger, which would be Satan. So in terms of typology, it's a type of Christ. I'm not talking about the actual city, I'm talking about the type. The cities of refuge are a shadow, and Christ is the real thing. So in terms of history, you can talk about that, but in terms of how you apply it to your life, no matter what I do, I can always go to Christ for refuge. And he's always close to me. And the 6 of them mean that he's 6 number for man. He's there for me, for a human being, for someone who's frail, someone who makes mistakes. If it was 7 of them, he's there for God, but 6, he's there for those of us who need help. And I think all of us need to go to the city of refuge sometime, don't we?